NFL Week 16 ended last week, but let's recap you of what happened going into the final week of the season. The Dolphins beat the Bears on last Saturday, 18-16 in a wild one. And now Miami has their fifth win of the season. They go to 5-10. Alex Moore started, and he did really well, proving why he should be the Dolphins starter. Mitch Trubisky had a decent day until the late interception cost Chicago the game, and the Bears are now locked in a top 5 draft pick for next year. But Miami can go to 6-10 if they beat the Jets next week, which they looked really solid. The final Saturday game, the Seahawks and the Rams will come down to a winner-take-all for the NFC West and most likely to make the playoffs. Russell Wilson, he didn't look too well in the second half, still threw for 239 yards and 3 TDs, but the 2 interceptions really cost the Seahawks a chance at a bigger win. And the Giants, it's been a rough season. Manning has thrown the most interceptions in the NFL this season, and the Giants, it was not going for them in this one. Cincinnati, they upset Baltimore as we go into the Sunday games, 24-17, in a big win for the Bengals. So now Baltimore, they have to win next week to secure a playoff spot. Both quarterbacks threw a ton. Dalton threw for 260 yards, 3 TDs, and an interception. Flacco, 241 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. Ben Watson had his best day of the season for the Ravens. Then the Battle of Los Angeles, the Rams and the Chargers. The Rams were up 24-6 at one point. And then all of a sudden, the Chargers come flying back. But Jared Goff, 219 yards, 4 TDs on the day. An excellent day for him. Phillip Rivers threw for 201 yards, 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. The Chargers turned it over 3 times. And they are now officially out of playoff contention, even though that was last week. The Saints win the division with a win over Carolina, and the Panthers are eliminated from playoff contention. 37-16. A good day for Drew Brees. He threw for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. Coby Fleener with a good day for the Saints. Cam Newton had an interception on a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. Christian McCaffrey had a good day on the ground. Alvin Kamara had 2 rushing touchdowns, and this one the most in a game in his young career. The 49ers, they blow out the Jets, who sat Josh McCown this week and let Bryce Petty take the wheel. But, yeah, that 49er defense was all over him. Petty, horrible day, 177 yards and a pick. Garoppolo looked the best that he's been as a 49er starter, 228 yards, 2 TDs. Carlos Hyde with a big day, and George Kittle has been Garoppolo's favorite target ever since Garoppolo took over as the starter for San Francisco. And then the upset, Jacksonville, all they needed to do was win. They do, and they have clinched the AFC South. 24-21, they take down the dynasty that is the New England Patriots. Bortles still struggled a little bit, 22 for 39, 218, and a touchdown. Tom Brady, though, the worst day of the season for him. 3 TDs, 1 interception, but less than 200 yards for the first time this year for Brady. Fournette, Yeldon had 2 rushing touchdowns for Seattle. Philadelphia, they clinch a playoff spot. They shut out Tampa Bay in the second half, and they take the victory 28-14 on the road. Carson Wentz and the Eagles, they were slow in the first half, but they got rolling in the second half. Wentz 3 TDs, Ajayi having a good rebound in Philly. Fitzpatrick keeping the interception streak alive. Every game he started, he has thrown at least 1 interception. Only 191 yards, though, for Fitz. The Steelers, they clinched the AFC North. All Baltimore needed to do was lose, and they had to win. They went 31-14 over the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson had a fumble that was scooped up and scored by the Steelers. Roethlisberger threw for 3 TDs. Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavis Bryant, Eli Rogers, but Antonio Brown was the leading receiver with 100 yards receiving. Hopkins, the leading receiver for the Texans. A rematch of the AFC wildcard from last year, just different results. The Chiefs win 16-10 over the Colts as Jacoby Brissett has started to fall down in accuracy. Only 170 passing yards for him, but Alex Smith, he had a turnover in this one as well. It was a scoop and score by the Colts defense. But the Chiefs, they've already won the division, and as long as they win next week, they can clinch the 2 seat and get a bye for the first round in the playoffs. How about this upset? The Lions, they win at home against the Vikings 33-31, and Minnesota is now in a rough situation. They need Atlanta to lose next week, and they have to beat Green Bay. So it's going to be interesting to see. As Keenum, there were no turnovers in the game. It's just that the Lions came roaring back. 415 passing yards from Stafford. He had over 400, I believe, against the Raiders as well. So Stafford having one heck of a season. And speaking of the Raiders, they absolutely walloped the Cleveland Browns, 45-3 for Oakland. And the Browns, they beat Cincinnati Week 17 last year to go 1-15, but we'll see if they can do it again this year. Carr threw for 4 TDs and sat in the fourth quarter. The backup came in and all the starters came out. Michael Crabtree with a good day, but Amari Cooper with a shoulder injury could possibly miss wildcard weekend as the Raiders clinch a playoff spot with a win. The Falcons keep their playoff chances alive. In Buffalo, they have to win next week, and Baltimore has to lose if they want to stay in the playoff conversation. Taylor had a good day. Buffalo, only a fumble by LaShawn McCoy was the turnover for them. Matt Ryan with an interception, but enough for Atlanta to go 10-5. And as long as they win next week and the Vikings lose, then they will be in the playoffs, and they need the Rams to win next week as well. No Sunday Night Football last week. The Cowboys and the Cardinals, a 38-23 win for Dallas, and they have now clinched a playoff spot. So even if Atlanta wins and the Rams lose, the Cowboys will still be in the playoffs, and they'll be as low as the 6th seed if anything happens. So a big win for Dallas. They'll try and win the division next week as they face the Eagles in Philly. Then the NFL Christmas games. We start with the Redskins and the Broncos. A 24-7 win for Washington. Just like the Jets, the Broncos benched Trevor Siemian and they put in Paxton Lynch, who didn't have the best day, but it was decent enough so that Lynch will start next week against the Raiders. But Kirk Cousins, a really good day, and the Redskins go to 5-10. But it questions if Cousins will come back next year as the Redskins starting quarterback. And the final game on Christmas Day, a rematch of the Super Bowl. The Packers win 21-13, and the Titans' playoff chances are eliminated. The defending AFC champions will not go back to the playoffs, and that's mostly why. 3 picks for Marcus Mariota, a rough day for the Titans offense. But Rodgers, 227 yards, 3 TDs, and Green Bay has clinched a playoff spot and could even get as high as a bye seat if they beat Minnesota next week. So in the AFC, New England, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, and Oakland have all clinched playoff spots. It will come down to Baltimore and Buffalo if they can get playoff spots. If Buffalo wins and Baltimore loses, of course, Buffalo gets put in that spot. If they both lose, Baltimore gets the spot, and all the scenarios will be next week on the Week 17 recap. So you see the rest of the standings in the AFC and the NFC. Eagles and Packers and Saints are the only ones that have clinched a playoff spot, along with the Cowboys. Winner take all in the NFC West between the Rams and the Seahawks. If the Falcons wins and Minnesota loses, the Falcons, of course, get that playoff spot. But all the scenarios will be in the Week 17 recap, where, of course, the last week of the regular season for the National Football League. This is American Sports Coverage, signing off.